metropolis is home to Egypt's most famous rulers: Akhenaten, Queen Nefertiti, and the boy king. To unearth the secrets of Amarna, we will lift up this buried city from the desert floor. We'll blow away the sands from magnificent tombs, resurrect lost temples, and reveal the astonishing true story of Egypt's most notorious pharaoh. Egypt, land of the Pharaohs. This ancient country is home to many astonishing wonders: gigantic pyramids and huge temples. But its desert hides what may be the greatest secret of all: an abandoned megacity called Amarna lies in Middle Egypt, halfway between the ancient cities of Luxor and Memphis. This buried metropolis is bigger than both. The desert sands hide a lush oasis that stretches across more than 50 square miles. They're all that's left of a once magnificent city. In its prime, Amarna is home to up to 50,000 people. At its center stands a huge royal palace, and not one, but two vast temples, the largest stretching more than 6 football fields from end to end. Why does this city disappear for thousands of years? What secrets lie buried beneath the sands? Amarna is the vision of an enigmatic pharaoh called Akhenaten, a king thought to be the father of the famous Tutankhamun. The city center conceal a remarkable account of its origin. A ring of boundary markers like this straddles both sides of the Nile. They define the city limits. But the tablets also describe every major building inside it. Ancient symbols called hieroglyphs reveal that Akhenaten builds them all for the Egyptian sun god, the Aten. The ancient Egyptians believed that the Aten is the creator god. He appears in the sky as the sun disk.
He is the reason of the people to live.
Valley of the Kings. Buried beneath tons of stone and rubble, a sloping shaft descends straight into the rock of the mountainside. In the deepest chamber lie elaborately carved fragments of an impressive stone sarcophagus. This is a tomb of high status, but there's no mummy inside, and severely damaged hieroglyphs on the surrounding walls hide all clues to the tomb's owner. But in the chambers beyond, one carving remains intact. Beneath an image of the Aten god himself are two figures, Akhenaten and a woman. What can these faded carvings reveal about the origins of this lost city?
This figure here is very badly damaged, but it's Akhenaten to the sun god and the rays of the sun god.
A female figure stands next to the pharaoh in almost every image. Decoding the hieroglyphs here reveals that this is Akhenaten's wife, a queen called Nefertiti.
This cartouche gives the name of this figure. You can see the name of Nefertiti inside the cartouche. The beautiful lady has come.
So this figure
This tomb is highly unusual. Nefertiti is shown to be almost as powerful as her husband.
The key figure here is obviously Akhenaten. He's the largest figure, he's the one who's closest to the Aten, and he, of course, is the head of the family. He's the head of...
Amarna is not just another city. It's supposed to be Egypt's new capital, the home of the royal family. But this tomb also hints at a troubled history. These chambers are never completed. Many of the carvings here appear to be deliberately damaged. Amarna is a vast puzzle. Why does the pharaoh move his family and Egypt's entire capital to the middle of nowhere? only for it to fade away. The desert plain by the Nile is hundreds of miles from Egypt's traditional cities. Here, the pharaoh rules with his wife, the beautiful Queen Nefertiti. Why does this spectacular metropolis suddenly appear here from nothing? Amarna is unique. It's the only city in Egypt built for a single god. Result of a forgotten revolution.
Of Akhenaten.
A clue to the city's secret history lies hundreds of miles away, in Thebes. Egypt's ancient capital is dedicated to Egypt's most important ancient god, Ammon. But faded carvings reveal traces of an unthinkable attack on Egypt's holiest site.
You can see things have been scratched out. And what was
Other than Akhenaten himself.
This is a wonderful example of how agents were sent all over Egypt by Akhenaten to remove Ammon's name and title wherever it appeared.
These scratched out carvings reveal that Akhenaten rebels against all of the old gods.
What Akhenaten is doing is clearly a revolution. A revolution from above, but a revolution nevertheless, which is used in public. Everything changes, it's year zero.
For more than a millennium, the Egyptians worshipped more than 2,000 different gods and goddesses. Among them, Anubis, the jackal-headed god of the underworld, Thoth, the knowledgeable god of the moon, and powerful Ammon, king of the gods. But Akhenaten erases them all from his temple walls, systematically replacing them with a single one, the sun god. Across Egypt, the Aten now reigns supreme, through his son on earth, the Pharaoh.
As soon as you enter the tomb, you see, and this is a man called Meri Ra. He was a really important person at ancient Amarna. He was the high priest of the Aten.
Priests are powerful people in ancient Egyptian society. They often have their own magnificent tombs celebrating their status. But this burial chamber is very strange.
Here at Amarna, though, we see the Queen and the Aten.
Nefertiti and Akhenaten totally dominate this scene. Only they stand beneath the Aten sun god.
What he's doing is supporting the king as the king worships the Aten, so he's handing over offerings up to the pharaoh. The king wanted the focus to be on the Aten cult and on his special relationship with the sun god.
At the buried city of Amarna, Nefertiti and Akhenaten have total, absolute control. There will be no other temples, no other priests, no other gods to challenge them. Amarna is the dawn of a new age and an audacious power grab. The pharaoh completes this city in just a few years. How does he achieve this incredible feat? Build a new capital for their godlike ruler, the pharaoh Akhenaten and his queen Nefertiti. Ancient capitals at Luxor and Memphis grow up over thousands of years. Their individual palaces and temples take decades to finish. The Great Pyramid at Giza is a 20-year construction project. By comparison, everything at Amarna emerges in just a few years. How do engineers build this huge city so quickly? Also construct the city's grand stone buildings with the same astonishing speed. A giant temple dominates Akhenaten's city. Its outer wall encloses more than 40 acres, a space big enough to fit tens of thousands of people. Inside, there are 6 immense gateways, each more than 90 feet high. The temple has no roof, so worshippers are never shaded from the sun god's gaze. And in the open space beyond are almost 1,000 stone tables, used for lavish offerings to the god in the sky above. This is a temple of monumental proportions. How did Akhenaten build so much so fast? Fragments of their stone blocks are scattered far and wide. So Egyptologists search for answers here at Thebes. This ancient city could hold the secrets of Amarna's construction. It's where Akhenaten begins his reign. For thousands of years, nearly every pharaoh builds here.
Thebes, at that time, of all of Egypt, it was one of the most important cities over the world.
Tayyeb thinks that Thebes is where Akhenaten learned to build big and build fast.
It's the same style which we found in the tombs in Amarna, representing the relationship between the king Akhenaten and his lovely queen Nefertiti.
These stone blocks date to just a few years before work begins at Amarna.
We can see the face of the Amarna period. It's exactly the same face, and the eyes, especially the eyes and the chin and the wig which they...
These blocks are the fragments of one of Akhenaten's very first buildings, an early lost temple to the sun god. These stones are much smaller than any other masonry here.
During the time of the king Akhenaten and the new kingdom blocks, which was so huge.
These small blocks are called talatats. Each one is 3 hands wide. Early Egyptians invent them, but they're an outdated technique by Akhenaten's reign. So why does the pharaoh use them? More than 1,000 years before Akhenaten, the Egyptians build the Great Pyramid around 2580 BC. Each stone block requires hundreds of workers to drag and lift into place. But Akhenaten abandons this technique. He cuts talatat stones that are a fraction of the size. Now, one worker can each carry a single block, speeding up construction. With this technique, Akhenaten's city is raised from the desert sand in just 3 years. Amarna is one of the greatest engineering projects in Egyptian history. The sheer scale of it rivals the construction of the Great Pyramid at Giza, a tomb that took 20 years to complete. Akhenaten builds a vast metropolis, a huge royal palace where he lives in luxury and worships his solar god. The pharaoh Akhenaten and his wife Nefertiti live in luxury here. Egypt's long line of pharaohs all employed tens of thousands of skilled workers to build their pyramids. They are well treated in life and in death. Tombs, carefully built from mud bricks, lie in the shadow of the Great Pyramid, a place of honor next to their sacred pharaoh. Each contains a single body wrapped in linen and carefully positioned with the face towards the rising sun in the east. Akhenaten shuts down the temples in Thebes during his revolution to banish the old gods. But these carvings reveal that by the time his son Tutankhamun is pharaoh, it's up and running again. Aten thinks that Tutankhamun is going back to the old ways.
The overall scene has Tutankhamun on the left there, making an offering to Ammon on the right. This is
Tutankhamun betrays his father. He moves back to Thebes and kickstarts a counter-revolution. A row of sphinxes reveals that the old gods are back in town. These magnificent sphinxes at Luxor originally bear the heads of Akhenaten himself and his wife Nefertiti. But in the years following Akhenaten's death, these statues are relocated and rebuilt. Their heads are removed, and each is replaced with a ram's head, the symbol of the original god, Ammon. A figure of the new pharaoh is added, and symbols at their feet bear the name of Akhenaten's son and heir. It's Tutankhamun himself. Why is the old pharaoh's own flesh and blood destroying his dream? Is this why Amarna also comes to an end?
That the temples have been deprived of their revenues, they're falling into ruin, and as a result of this, that the gods are not happy.
Tutankhamun seems to be carrying out an extraordinary act. When this declaration is made, Tutankhamun is about 9 years old.
He came to the throne as a child. Well, this is the tomb chapel of a priest called Pa'iri.
Graffiti dates the tomb to just after Akhenaten's death. It reveals that another ruler seizes power before Tutankhamun. The identity of this new pharaoh is shocking.
It's dated to year 3 of King Nefertiti Aten, who...
Nefertiti seizes power following her husband's death, perhaps acting as regent until Tutankhamun comes of age. But the graffiti reveals another surprise. The new pharaoh and her priest are worshipping the old god, Ammon.
The main body of it is a prayer to Ammon. So it shows that in year 3 of her reign...
Astonishingly, Nefertiti quickly abandons her loyalty to her husband and his sun god, the Aten. She reinstates one of the old gods, Ammon.
Life seems quite incredible, and I'm sure that Akhenaten was spinning in his sarcophagus at this point.
Incredibly, Nefertiti and Tutankhamun, Akhenaten's wife and son, reject his ideas. But do they also abandon Amarna? The desert sands reveal a shocking secret and a campaign of destruction designed to wipe Amarna from the face of the earth. Built to worship the sun god. But when its founder, the pharaoh Akhenaten, dies, his wife Nefertiti and son Tutankhamun bring back Egypt's traditional gods. But who kills off Amarna? Why is this city lost for thousands of years under the desert sands? This dismantling of temples by future generations isn't that unusual in Egypt. Every pharaoh builds massive monuments as a symbol of their power and status. They often reuse stones as a quick and cheap method. But as Aten continues his hunt, he discovers that the demolition of Akhenaten's buildings is malicious.
So this is another block from Akhenaten's temple. It looks like one of the king's names has been erased. Looks like it's been purposely damaged. The erasure of names tends to imply that somebody was not liked by later generations.
Akhenaten is not simply forgotten and rejected, but hated by future pharaohs. It explains why so little remains at Amarna. Here, the sun god's magnificent temples are not only dismantled block by block. Each Talatat stone is smashed to pieces. And in Akhenaten's royal tomb, the images of the old pharaoh are cruelly scratched out. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Aten analyzes a text taken from an ancient stone carving. It's composed just 40 years after Akhenaten's death. It reveals the campaign against him extends to his family.
What we've got here is a list of the kings of Egypt, and all the main great names are here. But when we look at the last part of the list, there's no mention of Akhenaten, Tutankhamun. So what this shows is within a few years of their deaths, they've been written out of history, and according to the official lists, they didn't exist.
Future generations of pharaohs condemn Akhenaten as a heretic. His traumatic reign and religious revolution considered an abomination. They tried to erase all memory of him and his family. For more than 3,000 years, but today, in an ironic twist of fate, his desert city stands as one of Egypt's greatest achievements. And his famous pharaoh of them all. archaeologists continue to piece together Amarna and its secrets. This remarkable desert city is opening up one of the most radical chapters in Egyptian history. Amarna's temples and palaces reveal the vision of an all-powerful ruler.